Thank you so much for your company. The Lands and Natural Resources Minister, Kweku Asomatreme, is fighting off claims Galamsey Queen Aisha 1 was deported and not prosecuted because of government Sino-Hydro bauxite deal. Speaking at a news conference in Accra, the minister stated Ms. Wan's name did not come up during negotiations preceding the deal.
Gentlemen, I was not part of the group that negotiated for the loan for and behalf of Ghana from Sino-Hydro Chinese government. However, I know and I've been briefed that Aisha 1 was not part of the discussion and the people they met in China talking about this loan. And we did not sacrifice her or exchange her for the loan. This lady was in Ghana prior to the arrangement that we made with the Chinese government to secure the financial assistance from them. And no government official thought of shielding her. No government official pampered her. There is nobody in the MPP that dreamt of dealing with Aisha in one way or the other so that she can perpetrate the illegal mining she was found in doing in Ghana, so as to enable Ghana to secure the loan from Chinese government.
The minister has been providing more details in this interview with my colleague Maxwell Agbagba.
The background information that I have is that we secured the Sino-Hydro loan for Ghana for our developmental projects. And as to whether Aisha was part of the deal or she was not part of the deal, it's neither here nor there. The most important thing is that she erred. She went contrary to our rules, and we have deported her. She's not in the country. The most important thing is to achieve sanity on the ground, and that is exactly what we are pursuing.
But you know, in another African country, a lady was actually jailed. They call it the Ivory Queen. I mean, she was going about, doing that. She was jailed in another country. So why couldn't you also prosecute Aisha 1 and instead deported her?
That was at the discretion of that country. Here, our discretion was to the effect that the trial of Aisha 1 be truncated and then afford her the opportunity to go to her country. And we did. And that was in line with our laws. The Attorney General is clothed with capacity to state that I have entered nolle prosequa of this matter, and therefore I have discontinued. I'm not pursuing this matter against these perpetrators who were alleged to have committed so and so offense against the state. It is our right. She represents the state, and she decided that this is the way she's going. So you cannot easily compare this one to another country where a foreigner went contrary to the law and was prosecuted and jailed.
Finally, some people are saying that it gives credence to some allegations making the rounds that some top officials in government were in bed with.
Can that be substantiated? You see, it is a sheer allegation, and such allegations need proof. Has that been established? That is the issue. If it has been established either by a court of law or a body competent enough that has been ascribed to do that investigation and has come out with such findings against the government, then you can rely on. It is sheer speculation. People are speculating. Do they have any clue to it to state that it was as a result of such reasons that she was deported?
Okay.
However, from that, the Commonwealth Human Rights Initiative is pushing for the establishment of an independent police complaints commission. According to the group, made up of civil society organizations, the purpose of setting up civilian oversight mechanisms is to ensure that complaints against the police will not be influenced during investigations. Head of Africa Office of the Commonwealth Human Rights Initiative, Mina Mensah, says a lot of cases against police have become cold due to the absence of an independent investigative authority.
The coalition shared its findings with all the relevant stakeholders, including the media, when it presented the research report in 2018. Again and over the last year, the coalition has worked assiduously to engage with some key stakeholders, including the Attorney General and Minister for Justice, the Chief Justice, SHRAJ, the Police Council, the Legal Aid Scheme, and the Parliamentary Select Committee on Defense and Interior, as well as the National Association of Retired Police Officers, and the media as well, to take forward the recommendations from the research on various models. These stakeholders also made a number of recommendations regarding the independence, the funding, the operationalization, functioning, staffing, and institutional situation of the IPCC. The coalition is happy to report that it has been able to produce a draft legal framework for the IPCC, which has been shared with some of the stakeholders mentioned in the preceding paragraph at a roundtable organized to discuss the same in December 2018. The coalition received inputs from some of the stakeholders and has improved the draft with the recommendations. The coalition, however, notes with regret that it has not been able to engage the Ministry of Interior in these latest initiatives, despite several efforts and attempts to brief the ministry and to get their inputs. Obviously, we all know that that is the parent organization of the Ghana Police Service. And so if you're doing anything, they are very, very key to ensuring that that happens. Unfortunately, we have tried severally and have not been able to engage the minister. While the coalition recognizes that other officials of the ministry have been forthcoming and supportive, it is important that the executive and political head of the ministry, in the person of the Honorable Minister, be seen to be playing a more active role in championing this cause, commenced by his predecessor, as earlier stated. It must be borne in mind that as the line minister responsible for the police, as I stated earlier, he would have to superintend the presentation of the legislative proposals to Cabinet and Parliament. His input, therefore, at this stage is very, very important.
The group has also been sharing details of investigative reports on assault on some media personnel and members of the public. It says at least 20 cases of police brutality have been reported in the media in the last 12 months.
The coalition can confidently say that all the stakeholders it engaged are agreed that the IPCC must be established. This moment is also opportune in that the IGP has launched his transformational agenda for the service. This laudable initiative is, however, being blighted by the incessant and persistence of cases of police brutalities. The coalition has been able to catalogue a number of cases from media reports, some dating as far back as 2011, in which innocent civilians have been killed, maimed, or treated with disdain by some police officers. And most of these cases have not been responded to. These cases include the case of Norman Addo, who was killed in 2012 by police officers who claimed he was a notorious criminal in Kumasi. Checks by the media, however, revealed that he was rather a contract worker with Capital Bank who had a psychiatric problem. A cursory media scan indicates that over the last 12 months, that is from last March to date, alone, almost 20 cases of police brutalities have been reported in the media space. And I'm very sure there are many more that did not catch the attention of the media.
Let's move to the health sector now, and experts say the use of non-prescribed anti-malarial drugs can lead to treatment failure and development of drug-resistant parasites. But many people still take malaria drugs without prescription. Babatunde is one of such persons, and he takes malaria drugs every 3 months without any test to prove whether he has the parasites or not. As the world celebrates World Malaria Day, we take a look at the abuse of malaria tablets. Here's a report by Patricia Roxon-Hammond.
According to National Malaria Control Program, malaria remains a threat to more than 40% of the world's population, particularly pregnant women and children under 5 years of age. Meet Babatunde. He comes from Benin but lives in Ghana. He treats malaria every 3 months because he believes without the medication he could contract the disease and eventually die. He has disciplined himself for the past 4 years in taking the malaria tablets.
Oh, I don't go to hospital. It's been now since 4 years now. I haven't been to any hospital for malaria, and it has been working for me since.
Baba does not believe he is abusing the medication because he gets the needed results anytime. Don't you think you're abusing the drug?
Oh no, is a doctor who gave me the advice to take it every 3 months.
But that was 4 years ago.
Yeah, and I still, since this, I haven't stopped. I kept on doing it.
Unfortunately, he is not the only one. Many people claim they know how their bodies begin to feel when they have malaria.
So there was this time, I didn't know whether I had malaria or not. I went to the pharmacy and I told them I think I have malaria because I don't feel too well. It happened some time ago and I bought Lonat, this medicine, and I took it and I was fine. I didn't go to the hospital.
Did you feel better?
Yes, I felt better after taking it.
Without any test?
No test.
See, if I know that I'm getting malaria, I just go to the pharmacy straight ahead and get some medicine.
You should always check for malaria before treating it. That's according to Dr. Kofi Adumaku-Boakye-Yadom with the National Malaria Control Program. He added that there are several diseases that mimic malaria and most people fall victim to that.
There are several diseases that can cause fever, headache, and joint pains, as you mentioned. On top of my head, I can mention about 40 diseases right now. For instance, you know what happened during the meningitis outbreak, I think about 2 or 3 years ago. At the initial stages, some people who had the meningitis were treated for malaria and they died. This is because the symptoms of meningitis are similar to the symptoms of malaria. If you think you have fever, if you feel feverish, you have headache, you have joint pains, try and get tested and let us confirm that you have malaria before you buy antimalarials.
There are several types of malaria tablets in our market with lots of commercials on radio, TV and online. So getting the malaria drugs for treatment is not difficult at all. People just walk into pharmacies.
Ideally, we would want to, we know the symptoms, so we like to treat it symptomatically. Otherwise, we would give them some antibiotics, which is broad spectrum, like Synat, for instance, or maybe other antibiotics which we feel would treat it well. If they should come back, sometimes we even collect their contacts. And if they are responding to treatment, we just let it go. If not, then we can recommend that they take it to hospital. But other times too, we would give an anti-malaria and they say that they get better after the treatment.
That is if it's negative.
Even if it's negative.
Dr. Kofi Adumaku-Boakye-Yadom has cautioned it is also wrong to take an anti-malaria treatment when the test is negative.
If they test and it is not malaria, if it's negative, they are supposed to rule out other causes of the fever. You know, sometimes you may have fever and you don't need any antibiotic or any anti-malarial to treat that fever. There are several diseases caused by viruses, and we term these diseases self-limiting viral infections. What happens is that The viruses get into you, your body is able to fight it. So sometimes all you need is to get a paracetamol, eat well, take a lot of fruits, drink a lot of water, and have enough rest.
World Malaria Day is celebrated every year on 25th April and recognizes global effort to control malaria. Ghana is implementing a malaria control program with a goal that generally aims at reducing death, with every household owning at least one treated net. Patricia Roxton Hammond, Joy News, Accra.
The World Health Organization says despite efforts by Ghana to minimize, if not eliminate, malaria, it remains among the top 10 African countries with high cases. Speaking at the launch of the World Malaria Malaria Day, Olu Kalua noted that 150,000 children have been targeted in Ghana to receive the world's first malaria vaccine for the next 2 to 3 years. This is part of efforts to ensure that malaria mortality is reduced by 75% in 2020 and to achieve a near zero malaria death. He also charged government to increase internal resources to fight malaria. Nancy Emefa-Dwadosi is at the event and joins me with more. Hello, Nancy. What more plans does government and the malaria control program have to check the spread of the disease?
Right. So then they outlined a number of interventions they seek to ensure that we close the gap and have malaria. First, they mentioned that they're going to be employing a lot of health personnel because they realize that in some of the rural areas we do not have enough personnel, and also some of the rural areas the personnel who are available are unable to diagnose properly, and sometimes leads to death of these persons. And so, first of all, they're providing health persons. They are also providing vehicles to communities that do not have. They're also going to intensify surveillance in these areas. So basically, these are the areas they mentioned. But they also talked about the vaccines that are set to be rolled out very, very soon in Ghana. The government mentioned that it's going to ensure that it puts in all efforts. But they mentioned specifically that they mentioned 3 regions where this is going to be piloted. They mentioned the central region, they mentioned the Bronga region, which comprises the other regions, and also the Volta region, which comprises the OT region. These are the 3 regions that will start the piloting. But they also mentioned that very, very soon they're going to make sure that the vaccine reaches other regions across the country.
Nancy, so tell us, we see that there are a lot of school children at that particular event in Somanya to launch this program as part of World Malaria Day. Tell us what you've been picking from these children in regards to what they know, that's if they've even spoken about how to prevent malaria.
Hello, Bennett.
Hello, Nancy.
Yes, Bennett, I can hear you now.
I am talking about the program you are at now. We're seeing a lot of school children who are participating. What have they been doing or saying in relation to what they know about malaria prevention?
Well, Dennis, when we came for the program, we're expecting that at least a student or 2 will be allowed to mount the podium. But I have gone to speak to some of them, and they tell me that they have been reading about malaria. They know that they're supposed to sleep under treated mosquito nets. And so, I mean, that was the popular view that I got from these students. Basically, that is what they know about malaria, and the fact that they're not supposed to diagnose malaria themselves and buy drugs or medicines by themselves, except that it's being prescribed by a doctor.
Thank you very much, Nancy. We'll leave it here. Nancy Emefa-Dwadosi joining us from the launch of World Malaria Day in Ghana in Somanya. Researchers at the University of Cape Coast have called for a national policy on responsible mobile phone use in pre-tertiary education institutions by both teachers and students. According to them, their study into the use of mobile phones in class has revealed that even though the phones are very valuable resources, their use by students and teachers during instructional hours could be counterproductive. The researchers reviewed their findings after piloting some guidelines for responsible mobile phone use by students and teachers in some basic and senior high schools in Ghana. Richard Kojunyako has more.
The research team at the University of Cape Coast piloted guidelines for responsible mobile phone use by students and teachers in Ghanaian schools. 15 schools were used for the pilot project, and posters were made by the researchers in the schools with the inscription "Do not answer calls in class." To avoid reducing time for lessons, do not pick calls in class. Teachers who attempted receiving and making calls during instructional hours were constantly reminded by either their students or the inscriptions on the posters. Professor Albert Abani is the lead researcher on the project. His team wants a national policy on the responsible use of mobile phones to ensure that contact hours are not lost by virtue of the fact that teachers do answer and receive phone calls during instructional hours.
We are not necessarily saying we want to ban. We are talking about responsible phone use in the schools. You cannot ban the use of phones. What about the ITC? Teachers will use them, children will use them. So how do we make sure that they don't use them irresponsibly? That's our focus. The guidelines speak for themselves. We are saying use them this way, use them to teach, use them as calculators, but don't use them for pornography. The 15 schools was to file out guidelines on responsible phone use, but the findings were from a bigger research.
Some heads of schools whose schools were used for the pilot project backed the research and want the GES and the Ministry of Education to support the researchers to scale up the project to cover the entire country.
Some people were saying that you should find somewhere to put the phones so that they will not be receiving calls. If we are committed and we know our purpose of being teachers, what we are doing, we are helping the children. So how come that you teach and you receive calls at the same time? You can have your phone, put it in your bag, but it should be on silent. After teaching, you go back, go through your course and do the course again. I don't think we should even fight for this. They should understand themselves because we are being paid for the work we do.
It should not be used during instructional hours. Looking at where I am and the level I find myself, it should never be used during instructional hours because it disturbs classroom instruction a lot. I wish the policymakers, the Ministry of Education, will come up very swiftly and help us with the policy.
The research team also want the GES and Ministry of Education to help facilitate a nationwide scale-up of the project. Richard Kwejojakon, Joy News, Cape Coast.
Now imagine having a hearing impairment from birth and also losing an eye as a result of a motor accident. That is the current situation of 9-year-old Desmond Lumo, who is in dire need of 9,300 cedis to undergo surgery. Desmond's father, Isaac Lumo, was compelled to convince the police to release the biker who knocked down his son so that he would take care of him. Unfortunately, the biker has not lived up to that promise because he's also not got enough money. Joy News' Jacqueline Sylvianate has the rest of the story.
Little Desmond is hearing impaired. On 28th February, while crossing the road leading to his home, a motorbike knocked him down on the streets of Ho in the Volta region. That accident damaged his left eye.
He was knocked down by a motor and his eyes popped out. They had to put him on oxygen to work on the eye.
The
doctors at 37 said they cannot help. He was referred to the Kolebo Teaching Hospital. They treated him there and later referred us to a specialist.
According to his father, Isaac Lumo, he reported the case to the police, which led to the arrest of the owner of the motorbike. Mr. Lumo, however, had to take a painful decision of convincing the police to release the man who knocked down his son. That decision was arrived at because Mr. Lumo had no money to take care of the medical bills of his son, and so he had to rely on the owner of the motorbike for those payments. That decision, however, did not last because the owner of the motorbike could not pay for the full amount needed for Desmond to undergo surgery.
The one who knocked him down tried helping. He tried raising some funds, but it's not been possible. The driver was arrested and he hasn't worked since then. so we don't have enough money.
Medical reports show Desmond needs an amount of 9,300 cedis to undergo an emergency surgery. This has left Mr. Lumo distraught and devastated.
93 million.
They said they will need 93 million old cedis to work on the eye. That's 9,300 Ghana cedis. We could not raise the money for several weeks. They gave us a deadline of Tuesday, but I'm not sure I can meet it. I always have to beg for money to even eat and transport myself.
Little Desmond's father, Isaac, is wishing to send his son to a deaf school as he cannot communicate in sign language. Jacqueline Sylvia Natis reports for Joy News.
If you have any support, do let us know here at the Multimedia Group, and we will forward that to Desmond's family. The Energy Ministry says the inability of NEDCO to utilize $54 million from the Millennium Challenge Compact MCC will negatively affect people in their catchment area. It says it has reallocated the funds meant to improve operations of the power distributor. A statement signed by head of communications at the ministry, Nana Damoa, accuses the power distributor of failing to cooperate in the implementation of the MCC, forcing government to use the funds for another project. Speaking earlier on News Desk, Nana Damoa stated it's unfortunate consumers will be affected and NEDCO would have to seek new funds either by borrowing or using other financial arrangements. All right, so we'll bring you more details on this in subsequent bulletins. And coming up in business, the Ghana Civil Aviation Authority begins processes to automate registration and licensing of drones to meet growing demand.